Are you ready for a Halloween tale? Are you ready for the truth, bitch? Come close. Snuggle up. And I'll tell ye a story. Yes, I'm just about to go to bed. I don't usually smoke, you know, but like sometimes when I'm going through a period of unusual stress, I turn to the cigarettes. It's the cigarettes and years of being a full-on death metal style vocalist that made me sound like a fucking gravelly London cabbie. I'm going to release this video on Halloween. It's not the reason I'm doing it, but you know, there are no good ghost stories on the internet. It's all a load of bollocks. And I'll tell you something else I don't like about the internet, and that's people starting up YouTube channels thinking that they're so impressive, just really playing to the crowd and wanting to be liked and all that kind of stuff. And then there's the other kind, the kind of edgy kind of, I guess I sound like that now, don't I? The kind of edgy, I don't want you to like me, this is all real and true. But, you know, that's just a cover for the fact that I really do want your attention. I don't want to do this. I don't want to tell this story, really. But I kind of have to. I feel that I have to. You see, this is all about, at least we'll start off by saying this is all about the ghost of Bluebell Hill. I live not far. I drive down past there every day on the way to work. I drive back on the way to work. I know the area well. Spent a lot of time out there on those hills, in those woods, at the stones, Kit's Coty, the ancient dolmen there. So, for all intents and purposes, the purposes of this channel whereby I will tell this story, and I'm not telling it at the end as an old man, you know, in retrospect, putting a spin on it, trying to make sense out of it too much. I'm telling it now while it's still going on, while I still live in this house, because I won't be living here for much longer. So I want to capture the vibe here. Because she comes here in the winter. She comes alive. There's a certain amount of factors where she's strongest, and that's obviously darkness, coldness, winter, around about the time of the winter solstice. And I've noticed as well, rainfall and full moon are also very important. Where the fuck do I begin? So I'll just say quite blankly, I know her and she knows me. I first heard the story of the ghost of Bluebell Hill when I was a kid in the playground. Like a lot of us did around this local area. It's, you know, it's a local legend. Fate led me to move close to the area. I should have said, by the way, I'm going to use the name Broderick Wallace for this channel and these videos. Obviously that's not my real name, but if I'd ever had a son, I was going to call him Broderick, and my middle name is Wallace anyway, so I guess that's quite a fitting name. Nice and Celtic. Fuck me, how do you do this if you don't really want to do this, but you feel like you have to do this? You see, because I ran into a paranormal investigator recently and I told him quite a lot, not all of it. I'm not even going to tell you all of it, but... And God knows, to tell the whole story will take a very, very long time. It's very complicated, it's very convoluted, and there's some personal, reasons and some, I guess bordering on egotistical reasons as well why I want to tell this story. You see, you could look at it as kind of nothing, objectively, especially if you were looking for proof or anything like that. But from the inside, it's a very peculiar thing. It's anything to do with the paranormal. It comes, it goes, it's ephemeral, it's difficult to pin down. Sometimes different days, depending on when you catch me, I might have different theories on different things, and I've had so many experiences concerning this subject that I've probably even forgotten some of them. So it's definitely time to start recording and telling the story. And there's never going to be a right moment, so I'm just going to get this video together now. And you know what? I recorded a few of these, and I'm going to chuck them all together and just make it unavailable to the public for the time being, and maybe sometime, later on down the line, I'll make it all accessible. But I tried to begin this many, many times, and there's not an appropriate moment. So let's make a kind of blanket statement right now. The main reason I'm putting this video up now, at this particular time, before anyone else puts together any clues and sort of, takes credit, and, I apologise if that sounds like I'm trying to, secure that for myself, but I should do, really, because it was my discovery, and, I was blessed and cursed to come into the knowledge, and I've seen her on numerous occasions, through dreams, visions, etc., etc. And obviously, all these encounters, these stories, they're just kind of like a one-off thing, and she takes various forms. I've seen her numerous times. I've got to know her over the last, must be about 7 years now. So let's give a blanket statement. The ghost of Bluebell Hill is actually the goddess of Bluebell Hill. And a particular kind of goddess, a goddess of death. This is fucking morbid, by the way, and but it's also kind of beautiful in that kind of gothic sense. And I guess an original story will contain elements that kind of at first don't seem to fit and seem inappropriate. You see, if I was going to make all this up, or if someone else was going to write this as fiction, they probably wouldn't choose, a bloody window cleaner and put me in the particular setting that I'm in, under the life circumstances that I'm. It's kind of too random. It's too nuanced in its own weird inappropriateness. You see, my mind is flittering now between different ways to begin. Let's just carry on with that initial statement. She's a goddess of death. And I was explaining a little bit. I ran into a paranormal investigator type dude named Neil Arnold recently, and I told him, if you watch this, Neil, nice guy, good guy. Haven't got any worries really, but like just in case you start putting together a few of the things I said and you put anything in print, I think it's important that I lay this down now, because I didn't realise that some people had made some progress before me. I'm specifically talking about Neil Arnold, but more appropriately, Sean Tudor. There's a book called The Ghost of Bluebell Hill and Other Road Ghosts. Sean Tudor. And if you end up watching this, I tried to contact you online. It wasn't possible. It didn't work. Email address didn't work, etc., etc. Read your book only a few months ago, and was surprised, and a brilliant, wonderful, masterful piece of scholarship. I was surprised that you were starting to, kind of frame it in the way that maybe she's a goddess, some kind of triple goddess, and you were using the particular epithet Hecate. Now, the trouble is, that's a bit too foreign. It doesn't really, the gods and goddesses, that, they have different names in different places, and they can have similar qualities, archetypal qualities. So it's not entirely out of the ballpark, but you see, there's this archetype, this figure that has come down to us through history, known as the Morrigan. Now, that's as close as you're going to get if you wanted to say, what is the goddess of Bluebell Hill? Well, she is a goddess of death. She is the Morrigan, and her symbol, predominantly is the crow. Also the magpie. I guess you're talking carrion birds in general. I'll go into lots more detail at another point in time. It's hard to pin anything down precisely, exactly, but if I just relay the experiences I've had, I can tell you 100% that's who she is. Obviously under a different name in a slightly different area. I mean, that's obviously your kind of Irish, version. But it's the same thing, it's the same. We're on the same island. And that's who she is. And I want to lay that down now for posterity. Sometimes she's with me in the house. Usually around the time of the winter solstice, and a little bit beyond, but sometimes a little bit before, here and there. And her entourage, that vibe. I visit the Stones Kitscoty quite often, so sometimes I kind of bring a little bit more back with me. It's always with me. Oh, I'm getting tired now. Fuck me. Oh. Anyway, Halloween 2019. Here we are. It's only the beginning. It's not like mystery solved. I'm just saying it. I'm just coming out with it, But if I tell my story, I'm sure that anyone who's, intelligent and has an open mind and is perceptive will hear the ring of truth and understand that it's too peculiar to have been, concocted. I struggled for a long time myself, even, believing what was going on sometimes, and yet at the same time, not at all. You know, that's the weird. Everything comes as a kind of weird contradiction like that with me and these subjects, because I've had a long history, you know, interest in these kind of areas. You know, as a guy who loves heavy metal, has always been fascinated by the occult, and God knows I've practiced a lot of it over the years, and that was born out of a kind of natural resonance. I had an out-of-body experience when I was about, God, I don't know, 15 or something, before I knew what astral travelling was, before I even heard the term. So for me, that was a kind of, you know, a kind of proof. Like, you know, I had this experience, you know, I told someone about it, and they said to me, oh, that's astral travelling, and, you know, they recommended a book, you know, on the bookshelf, and I went off and read that. It was a book on magic, like a basic primer on magic. Not the best book on magic, but a wonderful introduction to, you know, for someone of my age at the time. You know, I was able to understand most of what I was reading, and it was sufficiently colourful and exciting that it drew me in more. So, you know, you're talking a life that has been, you know, I'm one of those people, you know. We're all originals, don't get me wrong, but I'm one of those people that, you know, my mind seems to be slightly, well, not, my mind is open, and those experiences are accessible to me, and they are visited upon me. Not necessarily always of my own choosing, but sometimes I've provoked it, and as the years have gone on, I guess I've kind of developed an aptitude and a kind of intuitive ability. And, you know, as an artist, someone who, you know, has created, you know, a lot of art and heavy metal music over the years, it's all feeded in and it's all bled into each other. And but the funny thing is that when I moved close by to the area, it was the last thing on my mind, you know. My ex-wife at the time, she just happened to wake up one morning and said, oh, I had a dream about, you know, a young girl dressed in white got into the back of my car in that kind of, you know, Bluebell Hill stretch of road. And I immediately, like, you know, was, you know, bolted up like, whoa, have you heard of that? You know, considering my ex-wife, Turkish, you know. She'd only come to the country, you know, a few years before, you know, telling me the story. We're divorced now, but yeah, that's how the whole Bluebell Hill ghost thing, you know, in inverted commas, got started. You know, and it's funny because she was driving to and from that way. She had a job that, you know, she had to pass by and then back again every day, you know, down the hill and back up the hill. And it's like it reached out to her, you know. She was the most unlikely person. She didn't have any aptitude for that kind of thing. She wasn't particularly interested or open to that kind of thing. Coming from a completely different background to me, almost entirely. That stimulated. I had this, you know, thing in motion in my mind because I was losing my ability to play guitar properly due to, I think, a mixture of repetitive strain due to window cleaning and, you know, being out in the cold all the time and, you know, I guess, you know, becoming middle-aged and all that kind of stuff. So I knew that my skills were diminishing in that area. So I was pushing to create a masterpiece. Happened to bump into a guy shortly before, my best buddy, who hasn't given me the name that he wants me to address him as yet, so I'll just call him my mate. And my mate helped me on this music project, and we decided, you know, after chatting about that and other subjects and a strong interest in, you know, on my side, you know, Celtic kind of mythology and, folklore and all that kind of stuff. That we would write like a 3-track kind of like EP type thing, like just a little mini album, but that's, it's obviously 3 songs is a extremely small piece of work, but there's a hell of a lot that went into it. And in terms of the art and the music and all that, it was a statement. It was saying, this, it was like it was trying to come out, and I wanted to, prove myself that I could make something professional sounding and fully accomplished, and put everything that I was interested in into it, and all the different musical styles that I'd lived and loved over the years. And so we decided to center the theme around the the Battle of the Medway, the death of one world leading into, a kind of an ending, so it was, anyway, I don't need to bang on about that too much, but I decided for some reason that we should get some photographs taken around Kit's Coty, and it was like going up there, it kind of snowballed, like I started learning reading more about it, and the lyrics started, all different kinds of influences coming in, and so anyway, I had the idea that we would finish